Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are fresh off their first of 3 debates.
Now, determining who won the presidential debate, a bit more complicated. But to discuss that, we turn now to our political analyst, Mark Sandalo, who joins us live from Washington. Good morning, Mark. Thank you so much for being here. So let's get straight into it. How did you assess who won last night's debate?
So the winner is whoever goes up or down in the polls over the next couple of days. And so we really can't say, and these instant polls aren't terribly reliable. Now, that said, Hillary Clinton was more substantive. She was more detailed. When he attacked her, it bounced right off her. When she attacked him, he appeared to get peeved. He interrupted. He said at the end of that debate that his best quality, by far, is his temperament. If temperament was his best quality, last night was not a good night for Donald Trump.
All right, so Mark, obviously the candidates go into this each having their own strategy, if you will. If you could distill their message into one single line, a complicated question here, what would that be?
I mean, I think the candidates work on that single line. Clinton, who referred to Trump as Donald all night, was clearly trying to say that he's not mature or substantive or have the temperament to be president. She said at one point, a man who can be provoked by a tweet should not have his fingers on the nuclear buttons. Trump, for that point, for his part, was trying to portray Clinton as the ultimate symbol of political status quo that people are sick of. He said at one point, "You've been doing this for 30 years. Why are you just thinking about these solutions right now?" And in some ways, that's what this election is about. People do like change. They don't like the political status quo. So the question is, are they willing to risk getting rid of the status quo and handing it over to Donald Trump?
It's a very interesting point. Now, at this point in time, a lot of fact checkers, they've had several hours now to pore over both candidates' comments. How far from the truth did both of them stray?
All right, so some of these are subjective. I mean, when Clinton says that her job plan, a study says, will create 10.5 million jobs. Yes, there is a study that says that, but it's a mighty generous read of that plan. But there were at least half a dozen comments which are demonstrably false. And those all belong to Donald Trump. I mean, he said things like, I never said that global warming is a hoax. He did. He said, I never said the U.S. shouldn't pay off all of its debt. Well, he did. It's on tape. Donald Trump has not been one to let the facts get in the way of his story. That's nothing new here. I don't think it's going to turn off many of his supporters, but clearly he said more false things than she did last night.
All right, so everyone wants to know, I mean, it's one thing to go back and forth, who won, who didn't, but is the debate likely going to move voters? That's the big question.
If history is an is a lesson, probably not that many. I mean, there's no way that Trump supporters are going to jump to Hillary Clinton because of this, or vice versa. There may be some middle-of-the-road voters, most likely